That night changed everything. I didn't know it then, but nothing would ever be the same again. The family Christmas party was in full swing. Lights sparkling, laughter echoing through the air, and the scent of pine filling the room. It was a time of joy for most, but for me, it was a reminder of the things unsaid and the feelings I couldn't quite grasp. I wandered around the edges of the room, avoiding the crowd and the casual questions about my love life. It felt like I was living a double life. With my friends, I was just Alex, the guy who liked sports and video games. With my family, I was still just their little brother, trying to fit into a role that didn't quite feel right anymore. Jamie, my twin, was somewhere in the middle of the chaos, chatting with our cousins, his laughter cutting through the noise. We were close, closer than most siblings, but things had been weird between us ever since I came out. It wasn't awkward exactly, just different. Like an unspoken wall had gone up between us, made of confusion and repressed longing. I caught Jamie's eye once, and my heart skipped a beat. He looked at me like he used to, with that same warmth and familiarity. But now, it wasn't just a twin's affection. There was something else, something that made me feel both scared and excited. I quickly looked away, trying to ignore the flutter in my chest. The party was in full swing, but it felt like time had slowed down. Everything around me was muffled, Jamie's laughter, the music, the chatter. All I could think about was him, his proximity, the way his eyes lingered on me for a fraction longer than necessary whenever he passed by. I needed to get out of there, away from the questions and the looks, and somewhere quiet to think. So I slipped out into the cold, quiet night. The cold air hit me like a slap, grounding me. I shoved my hands deep into my pockets, staring out into the dark, empty street. It was just me, the city lights in the distance, and the growing feeling that something needed to change. I retreated outside to escape the suffocating heat of the party, needing a moment to think. The cold air was a welcome shock to my system, clearing my mind, but still, I couldn't shake the image of Jamie from my thoughts. How had things gotten so complicated between us? I found a quiet spot on the back porch, far from the music and laughter inside. The snow crunched underfoot as I leaned against the railing, staring out into the backyard. The darkness was comforting, shielding me from the questions I couldn't answer. It wasn't always like this with Jamie. Growing up, we were inseparable. As twins, we shared everything: secrets, toys, clothes. There was never a line between us. Whether it was building forts in the backyard, sneaking out to catch fireflies, or simply playing video games for hours on end, we were always together. I could read Jamie like a book. I still could, but now it was different, like he was hiding something from me, or maybe I was the one hiding. Back at the party, Jamie had caught my eye several times. Every time I glanced up, his expression was unreadable, a mix of longing and sadness. It was like he knew something I didn't, or maybe he was just as confused as I was. I couldn't tell, and that uncertainty gnawed at me. I couldn't help but replay every moment of our relationship in my mind, trying to find clues to this new dynamic between us. When we were kids, Jamie and I used to share everything. Not just material things, but feelings too. We were always open with each other, able to talk about anything from crushes at school to our deepest fears. But lately, that openness seemed to have vanished. Jamie was quieter these days, more withdrawn. Whenever I tried to talk to him, he'd brush it off with a joke or an excuse, never letting me in. It was as if he was trying to put a wall between us, and I had no idea why. We still hung out sometimes, watched movies, played games, but it felt different. The easy camaraderie we once had was gone, replaced by something tense and unspoken. I tried to remember when it all changed. It was hard to pinpoint exactly. Maybe it was when I first realized I was attracted to him. Or maybe it was when he started dating that girl from his college. I didn't understand why, but that hurt more than it should have. Watching him with her, seeing the way he looked at her, it felt like a betrayal. And yet, I couldn't tell him. I couldn't bring myself to admit it, even to myself. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear Jamie approaching until he was right next to me, leaning against the railing. "Hey," he said quietly. I jumped, startled. "What are you doing out here all alone?" "Just thinking," I admitted, my voice sounding foreign even to me. Jamie nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Me too," he said, his voice rough with emotion. I didn't know what to say. Everything felt heavy, full of unspoken words and emotions. I wanted to ask him why things had changed between us, but the words stuck in my throat. It felt safer to avoid the topic, to keep pretending everything was fine. Jamie didn't push though. He just stood there beside me, shoulders brushing against mine in the cold. The silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. For the first time in what felt like forever, it was just us, existing in the same space without the usual tension. "I miss us," I finally blurted out, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Jamie's head snapped to look at me, his eyes wide with surprise. "Me too," he admitted, his voice breaking. I don't know what changed, Alex." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of everything. "Maybe it's me," I confessed, my voice trembling. "Maybe I've been avoiding. I don't know. Everything. Including you." Jamie's eyes softened, and he stepped closer, his shoulder brushing against mine again. "Alex, you're not avoiding anything," he said softly. I think maybe I am. I don't know how to deal with everything that's happened. With us." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Us." I echoed, my heart thundering in my chest. Jamie looked away, his expression pained. "Yeah. I think there's something between us, Alex. Something more than just being twins. And I don't know what to do with it. It scares the hell out of me." I sucked in a breath, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Could he really be saying what I thought he was saying? That maybe, just maybe, he felt the same way about me? "I feel it too," I admitted, my voice a whisper. "I don't know what it means, but I can't ignore it anymore." Jamie looked at me, his eyes bright with emotion. "Me neither," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I think I've been running from it, Alex. But I can't anymore." There it was, our shared truth, spoken out loud for the first time. The air between us seemed to crackle with tension, the unsaid words finally released into the night. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a mistake. Maybe, just maybe, everything was about to change. The night had taken on a surreal quality as Jamie and I stood there, our unspoken words lingering in the air. The cold breeze had turned sharper, cutting through the silence between us. It was like we were on the edge of something big, something life-changing. Jamie shoved his hands into his pockets, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I could tell he was nervous, and it only made my heart pound harder. "So, what does this mean then?" he asked finally, his voice shaking. I hesitated, my mind racing. What did it mean? We were twins, brothers. We weren't supposed to have these kinds of feelings for each other. But the way Jamie looked at me, the way he touched me accidentally and would quickly pull away, it was all too real. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice cracking. "But I can't keep pretending it's not there, Jamie." Jamie nodded, his eyes dark with fear and longing. "Me neither," he whispered. "I don't know what's happening between us, but I can't ignore it anymore. And it scares the hell out of me." The admission hung between us, heavy and raw. It was like the floodgates had opened, and all the unspoken feelings and fears were finally coming to light. For so long, we danced around this, pretended it wasn't there, or at least that it didn't matter. But now, it felt unavoidable. "I don't know if we can do this," Jamie said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "I mean, we're twins. It feels wrong." I shook my head, my heart aching. "But it doesn't feel wrong," I argued. "Not really. It just feels real. And I can't pretend it doesn't anymore." Jamie looked away, his expression tortured. "But what if it ruins everything?" he asked, his voice thick with fear. "What if it ruins us?" I reached out, grabbing his arm gently. "I don't think it will," I said softly. "I think we're stronger than this. Whatever this is. And if we don't try, we'll regret it for the rest of our lives." Jamie's eyes met mine then, filled with uncertainty. "But what if we ruin everything?" he repeated, his voice breaking. "What if this changes everything?" I took a deep breath, trying to find the words. "I don't know what's going to happen," I admitted. "But I think we owe it to ourselves to figure it out. To see where this could go." Jamie hesitated, his eyes searching mine. "You really think we can do this?" he asked finally. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. "I don't know how, but I want to try, Jamie. I don't want to lose you." For a moment, Jamie just stood there, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he stepped forward, his expression conflicted. "I don't want to lose you either," he admitted, his voice breaking. "But it feels so wrong." I reached out, taking his hand. "Maybe it is," I said softly. "But maybe it's also right. I don't know, but I can't keep pretending this isn't real." Jamie's eyes searched mine, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then he took a deep breath, his expression softening. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, let's try." And just like that, everything changed. It was like a dam had broken, the tension between us releasing. We stood there for a moment, our hands clasped, breathing in the cold night air. "I don't know where this will lead," Jamie admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "But I know I don't want to lose you, Alex." I squeezed his hand, feeling a strange mix of fear and hope. "Me neither," I admitted, my heart feeling lighter than it had in years. "I don't know what this means for us, but maybe it's okay to just be here. To see where this goes." For the first time, Jamie smiled, a small, tentative smile. "Yeah," he said softly. "Maybe it is." The weight of the world seemed to lift, just a little. For once, there was no need for words. We were finally being honest with each other, facing the truth of what we felt. It was terrifying, but it was also freeing. Maybe, just maybe, we could figure this out together. The night had grown colder, the air heavy with unspoken words. Jamie and I had been avoiding each other all day, unable to ignore the tension between us. It was like a dam, ready to burst at any moment. We were standing in the living room, alone for the first time in what felt like hours. I watched Jamie, his back to me as he stared out the window, his shoulders hunched, and his expression taut with something I couldn't quite place. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "Jamie," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk." He turned to me, his eyes dark and wary. "About what?" he snapped, his voice sharp. "About this," I replied, gesturing between us. "What's going on with us? I can't keep pretending it's not there." Jamie looked away, his face flushing. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice shaky. I don't know what this means." "It means something, Jamie," I said, my voice rising. "And we can't keep avoiding it. Not if we're going to figure this out." Jamie's eyes were wide, his expression raw. "But what if it's wrong?" he said, his voice breaking. "What if we're ruining everything?" I took a step closer, my heart aching. "Maybe it is," I admitted. "But maybe it's also right. I can't keep pretending this isn't real." Jamie looked away, his shoulders sagging. "But it's so confusing," he said finally. "I don't know what to do, Alex." I reached out, grabbing his arm gently. "Maybe we just need to be honest with each other," I suggested. "To admit what we're feeling, even if it's scary." Jamie looked up at me then, his eyes searching mine. "But what if it changes everything?" he asked, his voice small. "What if we can't go back?" I took his hands in mine, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. "Maybe it will," I said softly. "But maybe it's worth it. To be honest with ourselves, to see where this could go." Jamie's eyes were filled with pain, his expression conflicted. "I don't know if I can do this, Alex," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I don't want to lose you, but what if this ruins us?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "I don't have all the answers," I said finally. "But I know that I can't keep pretending this isn't real. And I need you to be honest with me, Jamie. Even if it's hard." For a moment, Jamie just stood there, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and longing. Then he took a step forward, his expression raw. "Okay," he said finally. "Let's try. Let's see where this goes." And just like that, everything seemed to change. We stood there, our hands clasped, the tension between us crackling in the air. For once, there was no need for words. We were finally being honest with each other, facing the truth of what we felt. It was terrifying, but it was also freeing. "I don't know where this will lead," Jamie admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "But I know I don't want to lose you, Alex." I squeezed his hand, feeling a strange mix of fear and hope. "Me neither," I admitted, my heart feeling lighter than it had in years. "I don't know what this means for us, but maybe it's okay to just be here. To see where this goes." Jamie's eyes searched mine, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then he took a deep breath, his expression softening. "Yeah," he said softly. "Maybe it is." The weight of the world seemed to lift, just a little. For once, there was no need for words. We were finally being honest with each other, facing the truth of what we felt. It was terrifying, but it was also freeing. Maybe, just maybe, we could figure this out together. The living room was quiet now, the tension between us still lingering in the air, but with a different tone. Jamie and I were sitting side by side on the couch, our hands still clasped, our bodies touching in a way that felt unexpectedly right. The storm inside me had calmed a little, and there was a sense of peace in the simple touch of his skin against mine. "I don't know what's next for us," Jamie said finally, breaking the silence. "But I think I'm ready to find out." I looked over at him, seeing the uncertainty and hope in his eyes. "Me too," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "Maybe this is the start of something new, Jamie. Something real." He nodded, squeezing my hand tightly. "Yeah," he said, his voice full of emotion. "I think it might be." We sat there for a while, the weight of the past few hours settling over us. There was a sense of both relief and anticipation, a quiet acknowledgement of the risk we were taking. But in that moment, it didn't feel like a risk at all. It felt like the right thing to do, to embrace what we felt, even if it was scary. Jamie let out a deep breath, breaking the silence. "I don't know what this means for us, Alex," he said finally. "But I do know that I don't want to lose you." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "And I don't want to lose you either," I replied softly. "Maybe it's not perfect, but maybe it's enough. For now." Jamie's eyes softened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of hope in them. "Maybe it is," he agreed. "Maybe we can figure this out together, one day at a time." We stayed there for a long time, just holding each other, the world outside seeming distant and unimportant. There were still so many questions, so many uncertainties, but in that moment, they didn't seem quite as overwhelming. We were together, facing whatever came our way, and that was enough. Finally, Jamie broke the silence, his voice soft. "I think we're okay, Alex," he said, his words trembling. "I think we're going to be okay." I squeezed his hand, feeling a surge of gratitude. "Yeah," I said softly. "I think we are." The tension that had hung between us seemed to dissipate, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. We didn't have all the answers, but we didn't need them. For now, we were just two people who cared about each other, trying to figure out what this new thing between us meant. And maybe that was enough. The end of the night felt like the beginning of something new. The tension had given way to something softer, more genuine. There was a sense of hope in the air, a quiet promise that maybe, just maybe, we could make this work. For now, it was enough to simply be together, to be honest with each other and with ourselves. The future was uncertain, but that didn't seem to matter as much anymore. "Maybe we should just take it one day at a time," I said finally, breaking the silence. "No expectations, no pressure. Just us, figuring this out together." Jamie smiled, a small but genuine smile. "Yeah," he agreed. "That sounds good." And with that, we settled into the quiet of the room, the weight of the world lifting just a little. The tension between us had turned into something softer, something more honest. For now, that was enough. Maybe that was all we needed.